we are now going to explore on situations where white actually quickly takes on c6, immediately takes on c6 to double black's pawns. And I have actually divided material in three parts here. So one, black plays g6 and white takes, and black takes with b pawn. Second one is black takes with a d pawn, and a third one is black plays e6 and white takes. So this, and black then takes, of course, with the b pawn. So this is the way I have divided this now, this part of material when white immediately takes on c6 to force these double pawn structures. So let's start with g6. Bishop takes. You have a lot games where white plays castles, and then he wants to play move, let's say, rook e1, and then he wants to play move c3 and d4. There is a lot of theory here, like e5, c3. And then I can push, or I can still try to play like Botvinnik did. But now let's focus on positions where bishop takes, pawn takes. Okay, here what we have as a situation, we have actually this English opening, colors reversed, and white has here two ideas. One is to try to play for a quick development, because this is indeed, if we had the same position in English opening, what I meant is, of course, this. Bishop g2. This bishop is already on g2. Here we have this situation, so white can play move d4, with idea when black takes to take by queen. And we had one interesting game between Vachier-Lagrave and Carlsen, which I would like to show. But before this, let's see what happens if white castles. Because then many times we can get, for example, this kind of stuff, which, like I said, is very good for white, this type of position. Extremely good for white. So black should usually play move like bishop g7, rook e1, and now black has a choice, because he needs to develop this knight. He can either play move e5, so he can play move knight e7. He can play a little bit odd-looking move, which is not so crazy. This is f6. We often see it in these kind of positions because black would like to put a knight to f7. Or black can also play move knight f6. Okay, knight f6 is like what I said. Knight f6 is really a grave mistake, because after c4, knight d5, c4, knight c7, d4, cd4, queen e4, we have this English opening, colors reversed, where white is very fast. Castles, queen h4. Bishop h6 is now coming as a terrible headache. d6, bishop h6. Knight e6, because, well, black has to be simply worried about being immediately mated. So knight e6 covering g5 square. Knight c3, normal development, f6. Black is not so happy to play f6, but he will have to play such a move because, okay, rook d1, knight to e4, and then some accidents are going to, once knight is on e4, some accidents are going to happen. So f6, bishop f6, king f6, ef6. Such a positions after ef6 are not playable, basically, because, let's say, knight d4, because this knight is sort of a defender, so it's a good idea to trade it. Okay, here position is hopeless. Rook d1 is going to happen. If black is lucky, he will just lose one pawn. Only one pawn, if he is lucky, but he's probably not going to be that lucky. He will probably lose this pawn, and then he will lose some more. So rook f6 was played. We had this position played between Kasparov with white and Salov playing with the black in Dortmund Super Tournament 1992. And here Kasparov actually allowed strange mistake. He played move knight g5. I guess he was thinking similarly like in this position, like this knight is sort of a defender, let's trade it. Probably he was thinking in this direction. But in this position, actually this knight is can be pressured because pawn is weak. For example, move like rook e3 is leading to massive advantage. Winning position basically, because white is going to double and then he will threaten actually tactics, because once when I jump with the knight, rook e7 will take pawn. Rook e3 is simply leading to winning position, to winning advantage. Rooks will double and tactics are going to happen along the e-file. Simply, and game is going to be over. Black can also completely forget about, I don't know, some pawn taking business, because how to protect. Everything is going to go wrong. And if black, here is obviously that everything is going to go wrong. All the pieces are out of play. But if not, it doesn't matter. White is going to double and game is over. Knight g5 was played in a game. Okay, knight g5, queen g5, queen f8. Now white doubles. Rook e2, bishop a6, b3. But black manages e5. Rook d1, rook f4. Rook e d2, rook d8. Black is managing now somehow to hold this pawn. Queen g3, c5. Okay, black has now sort of consolidated. White is still clearly better because white is having this pressure. And white also wants to get ready for some action like this. White ultimately won. There were some actually mistakes committed in this game. Maybe I would like to show a few more moves, because there was one instructive mistake made by Kasparov, and chance not taken by Salov. Knight e5, rook f5, queen e3, bishop e7, f3, h5. Black has improved considerably his situation compared to 10 moves ago. Here probably knight f3, knight g3 was the best move, and on rook f4 to play move b4. Combining some kind of tactics. But white played move rook d3, willing to be ready to double. Can you spot here the way for black to equalize? Because rook d3 is not precise. Black has a tactical way to equalize. We should always consider pawn breaks. Rook d7 was played by pawn break, e4 was equalizing. Takes, bishop takes, queen takes, rook e8. Queen will have to go. Having queen check does not change anything. And the knight will be taken. So e4 was actually equalizing. Black did not spot this tactical possibility. He played move rook d7, and now white is in a full control. Knight c3, bishop c6, queen d2 double, rook f6, knight d5. White ultimately won the game. But what is important for us is actually that these kind of positions are definitely clearly better for white. This kind of stuff. White is extremely happy about. And here he should have played move rook e3. So this is something for black certainly not to enter. Move like f6, maybe. Move like on f6, what is the best thing to do? There was a game between Kasparov and Salov. Kasparov played move d4. CD4, knight d4. Okay. Compared to our game between Vachier Lagrave and Carlsen, it is similar idea, but then I prefer what MVL played d4, cd4, queen d4, because he speeds up the development. With idea which Kasparov played, castles, bishop g7, rook e1, f6, d4, cd4, knight d4. Well, the problem is that black can actually push his central pawns much quicker. For example, e5, knight b3. And now, instead of knight h6, which was played, allowing c4, much stronger was d5. Taking a center, white cannot use somehow this king in center because knight e7 will follow. Or knight e7 with d5 to follow. In the game happened knight h6, c4. We have here a game between Kasparov and Salov played in a French league in 93, so 1 year after this game which I just did show. Knight f7, c5, castles. And here Kasparov allowed interesting mistake. Probably move bishop d2 was the best move. And then if a5, a4, with idea knight a3, knight c4. If f5 to open up the position to search for counterplay, okay, takes bishop c3. White has pressure on these pawns are not so easy to be pushed. If black does nothing, white would probably play move bishop c3, and then he will try to improve his knight. Kasparov played move knight a3 immediately, with idea of improving the knight, obviously. Logical idea to improve the knight. But what can be drawback of this move knight a3? The drawback is actually Salov responded very well. He played here move a5. Now white would love to play move a4, but he can't. So knight c4, a4. Now these white knights are not placed the way white would love them to be placed. Knight b6, rook a7. This knight is a little bit shaky because d5 can happen any moment. So Kasparov decided to take. Queen takes. Knight d2, queen a6. With rook b7 to follow. Black has actually good counterplay and game finished as a draw. So f6. d4 is not the way for white to be better, because here after cd4, knight d4, e5, knight b3, black should aim for immediate pawn pushing, either knight e7 and d5 or straight to d5. Building up a pawn center with a c3 is probably a better idea. Knight h6 and now d4. cd4, cd4. Castles. Knight c3, d6. Okay, is white here better? He is. As long as he can ensure that black does not trade his f6 pawn for a white e4 pawn. And white should ensure this in a way that any time if black pushes f5, white can push e5. We had here one game from between Fischer with white and Spassky as black, this rematch in 1992, that actually Fischer did allow instructive mistake. Probably here the best way for white is to just keep control of the position, let's say h3, knight f7, bishop d2, queen b6, queen c2, making sure he wants to play b3, rook c1, making sure that any moment in the case of f5 there is move e5. And white is simply having advantage here. I personally think that advantage is much less than your computer will tell you. Your computer will give you a little bit more than +1. Your stockfish. Which I don't think so, because white has a space advantage, but black is very solid, and black has different kind of possibilities to go for a pawn breaks. So I do not think that this position is more than +1. But is white better? White is better. How much? Okay, I think less than computer thinks. Fischer played move queen a4, queen b6, knight d2. Dangerous proposition because he's going away from e5 control. Knight f7, knight c4, queen a6, bishop e3. But now black has great counterplay. Queen a4, knight a4. And how should black react? Spassky reacted in a good way. f5. The point is that in the case of e5, black has a great game after bishop is a6, knight a5, c5. Opens up the position and is doing extremely well. Black is probably slightly better here, because let's say e6, because you have to do something with those 2 pawns hanging, so e6, knight d8, let's say take on c5, knight e6, take on d6, take back. Black should be better here. 2 bishops are actually quite powerful in open position. But this was the best for white to do. White took on f5 instead. Now black is definitely better. Black is having this great English opening color reversed, and is simply having this bishop pair and is doing great. Black was clearly better, though white managed to somehow save the game. The c6 pawn is not a problem because rook c1, rook c8, knight a5, bishop d7, black is easily defending it. White managed to save the game. So white, in this kind of structure, white should watch out that f5 does not happen at a good moment. And this type of position, so it's better for white, but white has to make sure that this f6 pawn trade for e4 pawn does not happen. Though I think that white is less better than, or that white's advantage is smaller than what your computer is going to tell you. And then we have also option for black to push e5. Here we have an interesting game of Fischer, who played move b4. This was his 1992 match versus Spassky. This is a pawn sacrifice, interesting one. But I think actually that white is doing great playing English opening tempo up, because this kind of position we very often get from the following. Bishop b4, bishop g2, castles, e4, takes, takes, and here the best for black is c6, knight e2, d5. And this position is considered to be maybe about equal, but comfortable for black. Black has nothing to complain about. So when Caruana played the same position in internet game, Caruana decided to follow on this, and he played c3. Push, knight e7, push, takes, takes, ed4, knight d4, castles, knight c3. Tempo matters. Here actually white is not just comfortable, white is better. Somehow this space advantage more than compensates pair of bishops. Your engine will also tell you that white is better. I would just show a few more moves. Rook b8, knight b3 to free the bishop. Not only move knight b3, by the way, but very logical one. d5, if you don't play d5, bishop f4, bishop d6. Here, Caruana played move bishop g5, h6, bishop e3. a5, bishop c5, he was rook e8, queen d2. He was better, he is simply having a pressure. He's simply having a pressure and very easy play. Black has a problems because black struggles with his weak pawns. Your engine will also tell you that bishop f4 is quite good. Rook b4, let's say queen d2. So such a position, I think that here doing the copycat of this English opening plan with c3 is actually quite good. Simple chess, which leads to better position for white. b4, played by Fischer, is enterprising, but not clear the consequence on this sacrifice. cb4, a3. Okay, c5. Not willing to somehow allow this, or maybe take by knight. Jump. And Spassky played move c5, hoping to keep this diagonal closed. A b4, c b4, but d4. White wants to play for space advantage, for advantage in development. E d4, bishop b2. My stockfish suggests a little bit strange move, bishop d2, which I don't know. I guess, well, idea is simple. Idea is to try to use this diagonal after all. But bishop b2 is logical move what Fischer played. d6 here was probably a mistake. Black was worried about some e5 move and he wanted to stop it. But bishop b7 was actually leading to unclear situations. Bishop d4, knight f6. e5 is not so dramatic. Not as dramatic as it looks. If some pawn push even castles. And if, let's say, bishop c5 to stop the castle, bishop f8, and on bishop d4, black can repeat the moves, or can decide to be ambitious, because after bishop e7, e5, knight d5, it is still not clear what does white has. Your engine will tell you that position is approximately equal, and also that there is another idea, and this is move a5 to try to play move rook a6, d6 and castle. So this pawn sacrifice which Fischer made is very nice, and it is in a spirit of playing for development advantage. Development advantage, opening up the position. But it's not clear if it really works in the case of move like bishop e7, bishop d4, knight f6. In the game happened move d6. Now it is of course working. Knight d4, queen d7, because knight c6 was a threat, knight d2. Bishop b7, knight c4. Black is now simply too late. Knight h6, and now comes not terribly complicated tactic. Knight f5, bishop b2, knight cd6, king f8, knight h6, f6, knight df7, rook a5 is also good, but this is also winning. Knight df7, queen d1, rook d1, king e7, knight h8, king e7 needs to be played, at least to make sure that one knight is stranded, knight h8, king h8. And here, of course, black is a little bit unlucky. Because, after all, black is only exchanged down, has a strong bishop and pawn potential. If white here would not have a tactic which he has in the game, black would be doing excellent. let's say if this bishop was on c6, would be a different story. Maybe black is even better. But unfortunately for black, white has this tactical shot, knight f5. And this ruins black's situation because black is forced to lose pride of his position. This is this bishop. Without this bishop, this pawn can no longer run. He has to take, check, bishop e5, f4, rook c8, fe5, rook c2. This is just very small threat, e6. This pawn is much stronger. For example, check doesn't help because next move, whatever black does, is bishop d7. Is rook d7 winning, bishop c6, rook d7 because rook is hanging. And okay, they play some more moves after e6, but white easily won. So this was this typical pawn sacrifice, which is I think quite nice, but perhaps not working as fantastically as it did in the game. On the other hand, simple chess with c3 followed by d4 is I think leading to white's advantage. So actually I like move castles because I think after castles simply that white is better. That black, maybe even best for black is to play move f6 and to enter into this kind of position. Where, like I said, I think that white's advantage here is that white is better, but less better than your engine is going to tell you because we have many pieces, potential pawn breaks, and game remains complicated.